What's going on, guys? I'm meteorologist Jonathan Kegas. We are coming at you live on the WKMG News 6 Click Orlando YouTube page, and also, of course, on clickorlando.com and on the Pinpoint Hurricane app. We are tracking a disturbance north of the Turks and Caicos. It is heading towards the Bahamas and eventually towards the southeast corner of the United States. Development chances are low right now. But there could be some gradual development as we get towards the end of this work week and then into the weekend. Regardless, this does not look like a huge deal at this point, even with the water temperatures crazy warm. We're going to break all that down coming up over the next few minutes. We're also going to take a look into the Caribbean with Invest 95L. That is no longer going to develop. We were talking about the development chances with that one, even though it's bringing the heavy rain and gusty winds to the Caribbean islands. That's not going to develop. And then a new wave emerging off of Africa. That one has some decent model support, and I'm going to show you some of those models, again, as we kind of wrap up this live stream at the end. But first and foremost, we want to talk about this little wave of low pressure that is hanging tight off the coast of Florida, a couple hundred miles off the coast of Florida. So right now, the Hurricane Center giving this a 20% shot over the next 7 days to develop. Certainly, last time we talked, which was yesterday, it was just a few little showers. There's a flare-up of thunderstorms right now. It's nothing organized at this point, but nonetheless, we have more thunderstorm activity. Typically, we do see that overnight. That's when we start to get the instability over the ocean. It works the opposite of what we see on land. Typically, you do get an increase of thunderstorm activity overnight and then through the early portion of the morning. The development zone is this blob of yellow towards the northern Bahamas, off of the Florida coast, and then into the southeast corner of the United States. So that's what we have going on over the next few days. I'm going to show you some model representation. And again, this is not impressive. So again, this is nothing to freak out over. It's just something to be mindful of. Of course, we're in July. We are starting to get closer and closer to when we really need to pay attention. Of course, that is every part of hurricane season, but it certainly as we ramp things up as we get into August and, of course, September and early October. Here is our wave right here. It's called a wave because it's not a closed circulation. So you see the winds coming in like this and then making that upside down U or that N. That is our open wave. All of these colors here, it's the spin in the atmosphere. We're looking for a more consolidated ball of red. That would indicate to us that the model anyway is suggesting that we would have some kind of tropical development or some low-level circulation. Watch what happens as I put this into motion. There's really nothing to write home about here. This is going to be on July 27th, early in the morning. This is midnight. Here's the time at the top of your screen. There is 12 o'clock in the morning. We still have this drawn out, this strung out area of low pressure, very, very broad, not well defined at all. And you still see that little kink there towards the northern portion of the Bahamas off of the Florida coast. And then it tries to get its act together a little bit as it moves towards Florida, but then it runs into land and then doesn't have an opportunity to develop. So at the very least, this is the European model solution, by the way. At the very least, it appears anyway that whether this does have time to become a weak tropical depression or storm or stay this open wave, we could have some increased rain chances through the state of Florida, maybe into Georgia and parts of South Carolina as well. So that was the GFS representation. I showed you these comparisons yesterday. I like to do that. Again, the model comparisons are out there. We break them down. We don't just show one model run here and just hype the crap out of it like a lot of places do. I want to be clear about that. So we're going to break down here. I'm not just going to show you the doom and gloom model runs that you might see out there on social media. Nonetheless, GFS, the American model, has the same kind of deal. Open wave, there's our disturbance here in this yellow. Again, the darker colors as we get orange and red, that would indicate the stronger low-level spin. And the wind field here, we don't have that close circulation. So this is still a weak tropical wave as we get into the afternoon of today through July 27th over the next couple of days. Look, it's all split up. It's even weaker than the European solution that we just took a look at. So there we go. It's kind of drawn out here. It does help to increase some tropical moisture into Florida, but that's about it. This is the same kind of consensus here that we're seeing across the board. Again, that's what you want to see. You want to see models in agreement. Still, again, this does not have a well-defined circulation. You always need that circulation to help the computer forecasts do a better job at kind of pinpointing on what they're doing. But nonetheless, we do have a little wind shear off the coast of Florida that should help to keep this on the weaker side. Regardless, we're going to be watching that very, very closely. Of course, I want to show you now the computer forecast in terms of the rain. I do think there's going to be some kind of impact, and impact is a very broad term. It's going to be very, very low at this point anyway, unless it was able to stall off the coast and then just feed off the Gulf Stream. You always need to be mindful of something like that to happen, because the water is crazy, crazy warm, of course, over the Gulf Stream, which runs right out here. I'll pull up later in the show where the Gulf Stream is located and take a look at those water temperatures. Speaking of which, we typically go live every Monday. It's not Monday, it's Tuesday. This is a bonus edition of Tropics Watch Live on the Pinpoint Hurricane app, on clickorlando.com, and on the News 6 YouTube page, because there's an area of interest near the Florida coast. And I just want to make sure that everybody is mindful that there's nothing crazy being shared around social media. I just want to make sure that you're up to date and just paying attention what is going on. And of course, as we get deeper into hurricane season, if you're watching on YouTube, post in the comments where you're watching from. Let me know what you're thinking. Also, if you find this content helpful, give it a thumbs up. It really does help us out a lot. Let's more people see this. So here we go. There's our little blob of green there, a little blotch of green. This is going to continue to work its way to the west, and then there we go by Thursday, 10 o'clock in the morning. So a couple days from now, you see the increased moisture through Miami into Fort Lauderdale, into the Space Coast, the First Coast, up toward Jacksonville as well. And then we get it to cross the rest of the Florida Peninsula. That is 10 o'clock in the evening on Thursday. So we do have a good agreement from the modeling anyway, that were to show that we are going to see kind of a moisture surge, it looks like, from this little tropical disturbance, this tropical wave. Again, it's not a closed circulation, so it's not a depression or anything like that. The winds aren't all that strong or anything, but something to just be mindful of, that there is that highlight from the National Hurricane Center. And again, there it is. I'll go back to show you where they have it highlighted. This is from the Hurricane Center themselves, a 20% shot for development. But again, most everything, all the model guidance that we have, keeps this thing relatively weak and unorganized for its entire life as we get into Florida. Always have to watch, again, if this were to maintain a circulation out in the North Gulf Coast or North Gulf of Mexico, that would be a little bit of a different story later on in its life as we close in on August. And speaking of August, there is another area to watch where we could have a system develop towards the Caribbean as we get deeper into the first couple of days of August. I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. And again, if you have any questions, post those in the comments if you're watching on our YouTube channel. If you're watching on clickorlando.com, there's also a comment section that if you're an insider, you can post a comment there, and I won't be able to see it right away, but I'll go back into the article on clickorlando.com and I will respond. So any questions there, you can post those into the comments. Here is Invest 95L. It's on its kind of last leg. Now, as expected, it is, even though it's not organized, it is bringing some heavy rain to Guadeloupe, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. We've been seeing some of the rain as well. We have a few scattered thunderstorms towards the ABC Islands as well. And then into the Virgin Islands, a few scattered thunderstorms. This is it, as you can clearly see here. There's a lot of thunderstorms around, gusty winds. Nonetheless, though, again, still impacting us on the island, certainly if you're living there, if you're planning on heading there. This is going to head out into the Eastern Caribbean over the next several hours. By tomorrow, we're done with it. And then it runs into a whole lot of wind shear. This blue color here represents the wind shear that is detrimental to tropical systems. Our area of investigation hanging out right here is headed due east, and it's going to run into all of that wind shear and then just kind of fall apart. So not concerned with that anymore. Just watching for some isolated flooding again into the Caribbean islands. So just be mindful of that if you are living in that department. Hey, Atlas, he says, watching from Melbourne, Florida. Welcome to the live stream. Not too worried about this one, except maybe an extensive amount of rain. Yeah, and even that doesn't look impressive. Again, we have to watch if the sea breeze gets involved and then helps to enhance some things. So that's always something that we pay attention to. But I'm with you. Not too concerned anyway at this point, unless we see something crazy happen. Again, if it stalls out for some reason over the Gulf Stream and can take advantage of that kind of energy. But nonetheless, we are going to be watching it closely. We never let our guard down until it's the all clear. But again, This should not be a huge deal for Florida or for anywhere else, but keeping a close eye indeed. All right, let's see here. We're going to move now to the wave out by Africa, and real quick have another comment. I'm going to pull that over. Have a question about Mount Dora today. Love Mount Dora. The rain chances are there for Mount Dora. They are on the lower side, and they're later in the day. I do think the highest chance for rain, though, is going to be to the east of you, closer to I-95 later this evening. So I do think rain chance, I would give it about a 20 or 30% shot. I think you have a better shot to stay dry than get wet, if that makes sense. But I think the highest rain chances, no doubt, are going to be just to your east. West to east flow today going to fire up the sea breeze storms a little bit further to your east. There will be a few scattered storms kind of moving west to east through Mount Dora. You're going to have to do a little dodging. But again, the widespread junk is going to happen towards I-95 today and closer to the Atlantic beaches later this evening. Here is our next disturbance that is rolling off of Africa. It does not look like much right now. It is a long, drawn-out tropical wave here. Long, drawn-out piece that is moving south of the Cabo Verde Islands. But we do have decent model agreement as to further down the road of some extra development. So we are going to be watching that very, very closely as well. I do want to show you, my window got messed up, so it's not all going to fit on this page. Let me see. There we go. So now it's going to fit. What I want to show you is the European ensembles. We're going to start with the ensembles. And I always talk about this is what you want to be looking at this stage in the game for anything. Before we get any kind of development, ensemble forecasting is key. You kind of see here off the Florida coast, off the southeast coast, the European ensembles are not too bullish in developing this thing at all. There's only a few members that are on board. That's what those lines are right here where my little crosshair marker is. And then it kind of, some take it way out into the North Atlantic with development chances, but nonetheless, development chances do not look too high with that disturbance off of Florida coast, as we were just talking about. Now, you see a bunch of L's here. So that wave that I just showed you right there off the coast of Africa, we're getting good model consensus here, at least ensemble consensus. That means we have a lot of members on board suggesting that we are going to have development. Now, so something to watch if you're living in the Northeast Caribbean or traveling there for a vacation. As we get towards July 30th, 31st, August 1st, we're taking a look at through the date through August 3rd, and you see a bunch of L's indicating, again, where the ensembles think that this thing is going to be over the next week. Notice the color changes here. We start to see the yellows and the oranges pop up. If it's a stronger storm, it's going to act to go around the Bermuda High much faster. If it's a weaker storm, then we have to start paying a little more attention toward the southeast corner of the United States. So again, over the next few days, this wave out over the Atlantic is going to be one to watch. Again, that was the European ensembles. We also have the GFS ensembles on board. All these colors out here. This is the Bermuda High, really the Azores High. This is way over here. And model support, again, ensemble support anyway from the GFS. And again, just like the European, there's a few members on board for that disturbance that is over or north of the Turks and Caicos now, kind of heading toward Florida in the southeast corner of the United States. But again, not a lot of members on board, and most models at the very least keep this on the weaker side. Going to be watching this one, though, as we get towards the last few days of July and into the first couple of days of August. There's a decently strong signal here from those ensembles, both the GFS and the European. And again, that's what you look for. A lot of times you see on social media just one ensemble biting on something and people go gangbusters with it. You like to have both of those on board to give a little more confidence that okay, the environment's a little more conducive. And you have to do a little bit more high-level meteorology to kind of look at the atmosphere, look at the environment that those things are going into before you can really determine what is going on. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Hey, William. No, Denellen is not going to get a hurricane. You might get some extra tropical moisture into Denellen, but otherwise it is not going to be a hurricane. So we have nothing to worry about right there. So we should be good. Again, watching it closely, again, we always just have everything. We always have a heightened sense of awareness at this time of the year with any wave. Of course, things can change quickly in the tropics. You guys all know that if you're tuning in. But right now, this one does not appear to be a huge concern, but it could impact Thursday, Friday, into Saturday as well, with increased rain chances depending upon the timing, and we are, of course, going to fine-tune that. Alrighty, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, this has been a bonus edition of Tropics Watch Live. We typically come at you live every Monday at 11 o'clock through hurricane season to kind of break down what we're seeing out there. Certainly, if there's anything out there or what the trends are or what the ocean is doing, what the atmosphere is doing, all of that stuff. And when there is something out there and we have that wave in the Caribbean bringing some heavy rain, so wanted to give you an update on that. And, of course, that weak trough of low pressure off of the Florida coast that, again, has a small chance to develop. We're watching it closely, but at this point anyway, it does not look to be too concerning. We have our eyes on it. We'll let you know if that changes, but nonetheless, we'll continue to bring you these updates until this wave comes through, since it likely will impact parts of the southeast U.S. and likely bring some heavier rain to Florida. Nonetheless, organization looks low at this point. You know, it's crazy. I know Dr. Rugpull says that back in the 90s, you have to watch old school cable TV weather channel for weather and NOAA radio. I still have the NOAA weather radio. I loved that old school voice on it. Like, I was obsessed with that as a kid. I just love that. I don't know why. But it was a great thing. It was a great thing. All right, so question, when will the moisture get here? Likely as we get into Thursday and Friday. If it stays on this trajectory, it might end up heading further towards Jacksonville and maybe towards Georgia. But it's a very broad area of low pressure, so it's likely going to send in some of that Atlantic moisture. So I think Thursday into Friday, for sure. Oh, yeah, that stuff was great. All that stuff was great. I love it. Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you found this live stream helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help us out a lot. Share it with your friends. Let them know where they can get the best tropical update, the best weather update on the internet. It's right here on clickorlando.com. Again, if you are not subscribed and you found this conversation that we're having about the tropics helpful or enjoyable, I know it's never enjoyable to talk about something that could be impacting people. Don't get me wrong on that. But I like to have a conversation rather than just kind of spew stuff out there. All right, William's asking what time will the rain start on Sunday. I have to look at Sunday. We should not be dealing with I've not looked at the weather forecast for Central Florida for Sunday just yet. I've been focused on the wave, and this wave should be out of here by Sunday. So this should be long gone by Sunday. So just going off of just straight up how the weather behaves, it should be later on into the afternoon. But I will have an actual weather update for Central Florida a little bit later on clickorlando.com, and I will highlight some of that as well. Thank you again, guys, for tuning in. Really appreciate you watching. And again, we'll catch you next time. Hit that subscribe button if you found that helpful. That alert bell will let you know that anytime I post new content, you'll know about it. Thanks so much, guys. We'll catch you next time.